let's do me for a second,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've got no children.
Mm-hmm.
My hobbies in a lot of ways are my business,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, I love what I do.
Mm-hmm.
I do it all of the time. I've gotten extremely good at it. Yeah, you know, I collect watches. I, on occasion, get involved in random skiing and this, that, or the other, but I haven't done a whole lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
I love to travel.
Yeah.
I travel internationally at every opportunity I get. I will pop into Seoul, South Korea for dinner, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I love that sort of stuff. So the problem that I have, Nick, is like, I sell this business. I just can't, look, I can travel now. Like, so what do I do?
So I think, you know, in a situation like that, like you have to think you love the business, you love actually being around the business. It's what you know, right? You're not going to go out or, you know, if we're actually role playing this, do you want to go out and start another business after you monetize this business in a transaction, given where multiples are and the valuation that you've been provided by Paul?
Well, I guess for me personally, I actually love the idea of starting something differently.
Yeah.
And I think, like, you know, my business is an advisory firm. And unfortunately, I haven't experienced the same asset price inflation as a pest control operator.
Mm-hmm.
All of my returns from my business come in current pay, current income, as opposed to capital appreciation.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, you know, if I own a guttering company or a roofing company or a pest control company, one of the things that would definitely be at the top of my mind right now is relative valuation, from the standpoint of, if these businesses historically traded at 5 to 7 times EBITDA,
Mm-hmm.
and now they're somewhere between 12 and 20, right? That's a 200 to 400% appreciation in absolute terms.
Yes.
So my question would always be, okay, if I've hit a peak now, from a valuation perspective, these things are not going up, right? There's nowhere for them to go. I mean, implicitly they're yielding, they're 5% yielding. The multiples at which they sell imply that there's a 5% return. And I can get 5% return on government paper with a whole lot less risk. So inevitably, they may plateau for a while, but there's nowhere to go but down. And so a lot of the conversations I have with my clients is like, okay, if you're interested in another line of business, or you're interested in investment opportunities, and you actually are able to exit at the top, there has to be ways that you could take that money and redeploy it into asset classes that will likely appreciate while pest and lawn and everything else is going down. And so when I come to you and I say, I'm gonna have $50 million, you know, forget about what I want to do for a second. What sort of advice do you give me on how do I deploy that into, whether it's public asset classes, private, like, how do you think about that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So one thing that comes to mind that's a bit paradoxical, in my opinion, is that you could sell that pest control business now in the private markets at, you know, let's say it was a 5% yield, as you point out. You can actually go out and buy rentokil for a far cheaper valuation. So you're buying a far less risky enterprise, you know, even if it doesn't feel as risky because you're in control of your pest control business, but you're buying a far more diversified and less risky cash flow stream by just going out and diversifying into rentokil, for instance, right? As a bit of an aside. But the first thing that we really do with owners when they sell their business is start slow, okay? So forget FOPO or FOMO, forget FOPO, which is really like,
I don't even know what that is.
FOPO is a new one, fear of other people's opinions.
Okay.
You know, you're over there, you're seeing like your neighbors making a bunch of money. That would be a bit of FOMO, but then FOPO is like, why does my neighbor think I'm so conservative sitting in short-term government paper earning 5.25% or whatnot, right? So throw all that stuff out the window, because this is a highly emotional transition, as you've pointed out, okay? So then where we go from there and really digesting those emotional components is coming up with a concrete plan that's backed by institutional discipline. And what I mean by that is a concrete statement of investment policy.
Okay.
To where you really outline the goals and objectives of this particular person, of this family, et cetera, in order to be in alignment on what those goals look like and how the money is going to be invested, all right? And so that really ends with an asset allocation mix. And in my opinion, the best way to manage that is to do so where you can reduce volatility and increase peace of mind by having diversification to what I call the core 4 economic environments. And over time, if you can do that, you can generate nearly as good a return as equities with 55, 60% of the volatility, which for someone who is not comfortable with the financial markets and is comfortable running a private operation, that's typically a very appealing scenario in that the markets are foreign, stocks go up and down, they can swing wildly, 20%, 30% down. We've experienced, many of these episodes in our lifetime, right? Yep. Since the 99 tech bubble. And so it's really coming up with a well thought out plan and having those diversification benefits in place to increase the peace of mind. So that's some of the main components of what we try to do initially, okay? But back to your earlier question, I think it's also important, given a particular owner's wants and needs about their personal activities, to think about their core competence and think about their lifestyle and their former ownership of a business and say, hey, what do you want to do? Is there, a business in an adjacent industry, assuming you have a non-compete, that you might want to make some investments in? Maybe there's, folks that you've worked with over the course of the years that want to start up their own business. Is there an opportunity there for you to mentor folks and to get involved financially in their business as an outlet and as another activity without the intensity and the dedication that they've had over the past however many years building their business?